It is December 1960. The streets of Leopoldville, Congo are restless. Heat presses down on the city, carrying the sharp scent of sweat and dust. Crowds gather along the roadside, drawn by rumor and curiosity, their voices low, uncertain. Soldiers push through with rifles slung over their shoulders, the sound of boots striking the pavement in unison. And then the prisoner appears. Patrice Lumumba is shoved forward, his wrists bound, his face swollen from blows. The white shirt that once marked him as a statesman is torn and filthy. Every step is forced, every stumble met with the crack of a rifle butt across his shoulders. Soldiers jeer, yanking at his beard, pulling him as though he is no more than a spectacle to be displayed. This is Congo's first Prime Minister, the man who only months earlier stood before the world at independence, defying a colonial king with words that rang like iron. Now he is paraded like a captive animal through the capital he once governed. The crowd stands frozen. Some weep quietly, others avert their gaze. Many cannot believe what they are seeing. Independence was supposed to mark a new dawn, yet here is the man who gave it voice, beaten in public, humiliated by his own army. At the edge of the crowd, pale blue helmets of United Nations troops are visible. They stand still, watching. Their orders are neutrality. Their silence feels like complicity. For Lumumba, this march through the streets is more than a beating. It is the unraveling of everything he fought for. His enemies know it. The humiliation is deliberate. It shows the world that his power is gone, that his fate is sealed, that even in the heart of the capital, no one will save him. But beneath the spectacle lies something deeper, a conspiracy reaching far beyond Leopoldville. These soldiers act on orders shaped by more than local rivalries. In Brussels and Washington, officials have already decided that Lumumba must not survive. What happens here is not chaos, but choreography. The man dragged through the dust is more than a fallen leader. He is the embodiment of Congo's fragile freedom, and the proof of how quickly that freedom can be crushed. This is not just a story of a man assassinated. It is a story of a conspiracy reaching across continents, driven by fear, ambition, and the hunger to control Congo's riches. It is the story of betrayal at home, of silence abroad, and of a death that tried to erase a dream, but instead gave it immortality. This is more than a story. It is June the 30th, 1960. The new nation of Congo gathers in Leopoldville for its independence ceremony. Dignitaries fill the room, soldiers line the walls, and the air carries the weight of history. Belgium's King Belgian rises first, speaking with measured dignity. He praises the genius of King Leopold II, the monarch who had carved out Congo as his personal possession decades earlier. He calls it a civilizing mission, a gift to the Congolese people. For the Belgians, this is supposed to be a ceremonial handover, neat, controlled, leaving old hierarchies intact. The new flag might wave, but Belgian power lingers quietly in the mines, in the banks, in the generals still stationed across the land. Then something happens that no one has scripted. Patrice Lumumba, the new Prime Minister, stands up. He has not been scheduled to speak, yet he moves to the podium, his voice cutting through the hall. He speaks not of gratitude, but of suffering. He names the beatings, the humiliations, the forced labor, the land stripped away. He reminds Belgium that Congo's freedom has not been a gift, but a struggle, won by Congolese blood and sacrifice. The room stiffens. King Belgian sits in silence, stone-faced. Belgian officials shift uncomfortably, but outside, on the streets, the crowd roars with pride. For the first time, a Congolese leader has said what they have always known. Their suffering has been real, and their dignity can no longer be denied. That moment marks the beginning of Lumumba's legend and the start of the storm that will consume him. Congo is not just another colony. It has been one of the most brutal experiments in imperial rule. In the late 19th century, King Leopold II of Belgium turns the territory into his private estate, the so-called Congo Free State. There, millions are forced to harvest rubber and ivory under a system of terror. Villages that refuse quotas are burnt. Men, women, even children lose their hands to colonial overseers. Historians estimate that as many as 10 million Congolese die in those years. International outrage eventually forces Belgium to take control from Leopold in 1908, but even then, life does not improve. Congo remains a colony built on extraction, copper, gold, diamonds, and later uranium. Congolese workers labor in mines that fuel Europe's industry. They pay taxes but have no vote. They are subjects, not citizens. By mid-century, Congo is rich in resources, yet its people are poor, voiceless, and restless. It is in this world that Patrice Lumumba comes of age. Born in 1925 in the Kasai region, he starts as a postal clerk, sharp and ambitious. Unlike many of his peers, he manages to receive an education, which he uses to teach himself law, politics, and history. His gift is his voice. He speaks with clarity, conviction, and a rhythm that draws people in. By the 1950s, he is a leading figure in the independence movement, calling for dignity and unity in a country deliberately divided by colonial rule. As the sun begins to set on Belgian rule in the Congo, a pervasive sense of suspicion and fear grips the land. There is no grand plan, no carefully crafted strategy for independence. Instead, when violence erupts, the Belgians find themselves caught off guard, reacting with a mixture of surprise and alarm, scrambling to find a path forward. As the demands of Congolese nationalists grow louder and more insistent, they improvise with hurried reforms, desperate to stem the rising tide. Finally, terrified of a full-blown colonial war, they simply relinquish power as quickly as they can. This hasty handover in 1960 is a dangerous gamble, famously known as le pari congolais, the Congo bet. For decades, Belgium had meticulously shielded the Congo from any real political activity. This means that no Congolese has ever experienced the intricacies of government or parliamentary life. National elections are unheard of, even provincial ones. It is only in 1957 that the Belgians even permitted Congolese to participate in municipal elections in a handful of major towns. The result is a profound lack of skilled personnel. Of the 1,400 top civil service posts, only 3 are held by Congolese, and 2 of those are very recent appointments. By 1960, a mere 30 university graduates exist in the entire country. Ironically, the largest group of trained individuals are priests, more than 600 of them. When the academic year of 1959-1960 concludes, a mere 136 students have finished secondary education. There are no Congolese doctors, no secondary school teachers, no army officers. The Belgians, in their desperate calculation, believe that this profound inexperience will play to their advantage. They assume Congolese politicians will be content with the outward symbols of power, leaving the true levers, the bureaucracy, the army, and the economy, firmly in Belgian hands. Congolese leaders will head government ministries, but the core of the colonial state, they reason, will continue to operate much as before. As independence approaches, Lumumba emerges as a man capable of rallying a fragmented people. He calls for a single, strong Congo, not a patchwork of tribes, not a puppet state for Belgium, but a nation in control of its own destiny. But that vision carries risk. For Belgium, it threatens the quiet arrangement they hope to preserve. For Western powers, it stirs fear that Congo's riches might slip into the orbit of the Soviet Union. And for rivals inside Congo, Lumumba's charisma and rapid rise create envy and distrust. That tension hangs in the air during the independence ceremony. Belgium expects a polite transition. Instead, Lumumba forces the world to hear a truth they have long denied. His words are not just a speech, they are a declaration of independence in its purest form. Yet, with every sentence, he makes enemies. The Belgian press call him dangerous. Western diplomats whisper about his leanings. Even within Congo, elites worry that his fiery nationalism will ignite divisions they cannot control. Lumumba walks out of that hall a hero to his people and a marked man to those who still hold power. The first shadows of betrayal are already forming. Congo is independent, yes, but the struggle for its soul and for Lumumba's life has only just begun. Independence in Congo lasts less than a week before it begins to unravel. In early July 1960, soldiers of the Force Publique, Congo's army, still commanded almost entirely by Belgian officers, mutiny. The men expect independence to bring promotions, higher pay, and respect. Instead, they find the same white officers barking orders, the same humiliations, the same wages. Frustration boils over into violence. Officers are attacked, Europeans flee in panic, and chaos ripples across the new nation. Lumumba's government, barely days old, faces its first crisis. He scrambles to calm the rebellion by Africanizing the army, promoting Congolese into senior ranks almost overnight. But the move, though necessary, frightens Belgium. To Belgian officials, this looks like disorder, even anarchy. They seize the chance to intervene. Troops are flown in to protect Europeans, but their presence undercuts Congo's sovereignty. For Lumumba, it feels like a betrayal, a colonial grip tightening just as independence is supposed to loosen it. Then comes Katanga. Moise Tshombe, the ambitious leader of the mineral-rich southern province, declares secession. Backed by Belgian mining companies and officials, Katanga breaks away with its vast copper and uranium reserves. Without Katanga, Congo loses its economic backbone. What begins as a mutiny now threatens to split the nation apart. Lumumba turns outward. He appeals first to the United Nations. Secretary General Dag Hammarskjöld agrees to send peacekeepers, but their mandate is limited. They can help restore order, but they will not fight Belgian troops or force Katanga back into Congo. To Lumumba, this is half a solution and half a trap. He needs more. Desperate, he reaches across Cold War lines. Lumumba asks the Soviet Union for aid. Moscow responds quickly, sending planes, trucks, and advisors. It is a lifeline, but also a gamble. For Washington and Brussels, this confirms their worst fears. Patrice Lumumba is slipping into the Soviet orbit. In the fevered logic of the Cold War, that makes him not just a national leader, but a global threat. The crisis deepens at home. President Joseph Kasavubu, once an ally, grows wary of Lumumba's dominance. Political rivals whisper that he is reckless, too radical, too dangerous. In September, Kasavubu dismisses him as Prime Minister. Lumumba tries to dismiss Kasavubu in turn, but the standoff leaves the government paralyzed. For Congo, the dream of independence curdles into a nightmare of division and foreign interference. For Lumumba, the walls close in. His enemies circle. Belgian officials eager to protect their minds, Western powers fearful of his Soviet ties, rivals at home hungry for power. Power that now drifts towards the army and into the hands of Joseph Mobutu, the young colonel whom Lumumba himself had promoted only weeks earlier. Mobutu was no ordinary officer. Shrewd, pragmatic, and ambitious, he understands that whoever controls the army controls the state. Backed quietly by Western intelligence, he stages what he calls a peaceful revolution. UN forces stand by. Lumumba is placed under house arrest, cut off, isolated, and marked. Mobutu's soldiers shadow Lumumba's house, cut his telephone lines, and leave him to stew in silence. Silence is something that Lumumba cannot bear. The man who had once electrified a nation cannot sit still while rivals plot in the open. And so, in late November 1960, he takes his chance. Under cloud cover, he sets out for Stanleyville, the city where loyal ministers and soldiers wait. If he can reach it, he might rally again. If not, he will vanish into the river, another casualty of a young nation's storm. The rains just break over Leopoldville when Patrice Lumumba disappears into the night. Thunder rolls across the wide Congo River, its muddy waters swollen and restless, mirroring the turmoil of the country itself. Only 6 months earlier, he had stood at the independence podium, his voice ringing like a drumbeat against the remnants of colonial pride. Now he moves under guard, a hunted man, slipping past checkpoints, heading north in search of safe ground. Each mile upriver carries memory. Villagers still come alive at the sight of him. Women press cassava bread into his hands. Children cling to his legs. Men lift their fists in silent salute. The scent of wood smoke and wet earth fills the air as the crowds gather on the banks, whispering his name as though it's both a prayer and a warning. They have not forgotten the man who dared to tell a European king, to his face, that Congo's freedom belongs to the Congolese alone. But the world beyond these villages turns against him. To Western ears, his fiery independence sounds like a revolution, and Congo is not just any nation. Beneath its soil lies the ore that once fed the bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. No Cold War power intends to let such riches slip from its grasp. The escape does not last. At Port Frankie, soldiers loyal to Mobutu close in. They drag him from the back of a battered car, his shirt torn, his face streaked with dust and sweat. The Prime Minister who once held the attention of the world is shoved into the back of a truck like a common prisoner. Crowds still press close to glimpse him, some weeping openly, others silent in disbelief. In Leopoldville, he is paraded before journalists. The spectacle is deliberate, to strip him of dignity, to show that Congo's young lion can be caged. Soldiers push him, mock him, even pull at his beard. He stands tall when he can, but the blows come heavy, and soon bruises cover his arms and face. The message is clear. This is no longer the leader of a nation, but a man at the mercy of his rivals. The world watches and chooses caution. United Nations troops patrol the streets, their pale blue helmets visible at every corner, but they do not intervene. Their mandate is neutrality. To Lumumba's supporters, that neutrality looks like betrayal. To his enemies, it looks like permission. In Washington, files cross desks with the red stamp of urgency. The CIA debates options. Assassination plots surface. Poison, snipers, even talk of a toothpaste laced with toxins. In Brussels, officials whisper that Congo cannot find stability while Lumumba still breathes. None of them pulls the trigger directly, but all signal that the outcome does not matter, so long as he does not return to power. Meanwhile, Lumumba clings to the tools left to him, words and paper. In cramped handwriting, he sends letters to his wife, Pauline. He tells her not to despair. He tells her that history will judge differently than the moment. His body is in chains, but his belief in Congo's independence remains untamed. He has always spoken in absolutes: freedom, dignity, unity, and even in captivity, he refuses to bend them. But the ground beneath him shifts. His jailers debate what to do. Keeping him in Leopoldville means unrest. Exiling him risks escape. Execution in the capital might ignite a rebellion. Then comes the decision that marks the turning point: transfer to Katanga. Katanga is no ordinary province. Its copper mines are the richest in Africa, and Belgian companies ensure that they stay in European hands. Moise Tshombe, the self-styled president of Katanga, broke away from the rest of the Congo within weeks of independence. He has no love for Lumumba, who once thundered against secession and vowed to bring Katanga back under central rule. To send Lumumba there is not a precaution, it is a sentence. On January the 17th, 1961, an aircraft lifts off from Leopoldville, carrying Lumumba and two close allies, Joseph Okito and Maurice Mpolo. The windows rattle as the plane crosses the savannah. Bound at the wrists, Lumumba sits in silence, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Soldiers smirk and spit, mocking the man they call a traitor. Outside, the land stretches wide and endless, as if indifferent to the drama unfolding above. The plane lands in Elizabethville, Katanga's capital, at dusk. The air is heavy with the scent of dust and diesel, the city buzzing with European officers and Katangan gendarmes. Waiting at the tarmac are men who have already made up their minds. Belgian advisors stand with Katangan officials, their coats buttoned against the evening wind. They do not greet Lumumba as a prisoner of war, they greet him as a burden to be disposed of. He is driven to a secluded villa on the city's outskirts. Inside, under the harsh glow of lamps, soldiers begin their work. They strike him with rifle butts, kick him when he stumbles, spit at him when he falls. The beating stretches for hours, a performance of cruelty for those who wish to see him broken. Okito and Mpolo endure the same. The sound of fists and boots echoes through the villa until the men are bloodied shadows of themselves. Yet, witnesses later recall that Lumumba does not beg. He stands when he can, his face swollen but his eyes steady. The defiance that had unsettled kings and presidents lingers in the silence of his battered body. As night deepens, trucks arrive. The prisoners are hauled onto flatbeds, their heads lolling with exhaustion. Soldiers drive them out along a narrow road, headlight cutting through the trees. The convoy stops in a clearing. Torches flare. a firing squad assembles. It is quick, clinical. Shots crack in the humid air. Lumumba and his companions crumple into the dust. The silence that follows is thick, broken only by the hiss of insects in the bush. It is January the 17th, 1961. Lumumba is 35 years old. But even death does not end the desecration. First the bodies are buried, days later they are exhumed. Then comes the most grotesque part. Belgian officers, desperate to eliminate evidence and fearing the graves might become shrines, hack the corpses to pieces and dissolve them in acid. The goal is annihilation, to erase them from the earth entirely. One Belgian officer later admits, years after the fact, that he carried away teeth as trophies. It is a confession that shocks the world when it emerges decades later, proof not only of the brutality of the act, but of the cold calculation behind it. Yet the annihilation attempt fails. His absence becomes louder than his presence. Rumors of his death spread quickly, then harden into certainty. Across Africa, the news sparks outrage. In Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah declares him a martyr. In Guinea, crowds fill the streets in grief and fury. In the Caribbean and in Harlem, activists carry his name into their chants, holding him up as proof of how far imperial powers will go to strangle African freedom. Back in the Congo, the void he leaves is filled quickly. Joseph Mobutu, the once obscure soldier who had betrayed him, rises to power with Western backing, later renaming the Congo to Zaire. Washington and Brussels welcome him as a bulwark against communism, a dependable ally in the Cold War chessboard. Mobutu rules with a mix of cunning, brutality, and flair. He cultivates an image, leopard skin hats, dark glasses, military uniforms, that projects both charisma and fear. He crushes opponents ruthlessly, jails dissenters, and loots the state treasury on a staggering scale. Under his rule, Zaire becomes a paradox, rich in resources but impoverished in reality. Mobutu siphons off billions in aid and mineral wealth, while ordinary citizens struggle with poverty and decaying infrastructure. Yet so long as he keeps Soviet influence at bay, the West turns a blind eye. For more than 3 decades, Mobutu is untouchable. He is feted in Western capitals, photographed with presidents and monarchs, presented as a modern African statesman. But beneath the spectacle lies repression and decay, and for all of Mobutu's might, he can never erase Lumumba's ghost. Lumumba's speeches, recorded on brittle tape reels, circulate like contraband scripture. Students whisper his words in dormitories, trade unionists paint his name on banners, poets weave him into their verses. He becomes a symbol larger than life, the young leader betrayed by his own and destroyed by outsiders, yet still standing, in memory, for the possibility of an Africa free and whole. The story of his betrayal lingers not only because of its brutality, but because of its unfinished edges. Documents revealed decades later confirmed the handprints of foreign governments. The CIA admitted plotting against him. Belgian ministers acknowledged, quote, moral responsibility. But responsibility is not the same as accountability. No courtroom ever weighed the lives lost in that clearing against the nations that looked away. And so Patrice Lumumba remains both a man and a myth. A man because he laughed and wrote letters and carried the scent of Congo's soil on his shoes. A myth because his death transforms him into something untouchable. A martyr who belongs not to one village or one country, but to a whole continent's struggle. For ordinary Africans, however, there is no doubt. This is not just the death of a man, it is the murder of a dream. Proof that independence, though declared on paper, is still fragile in reality. The rains that fell on that night he fled Leopoldville have long since washed into the ocean. The soldiers who beat him, the officials who signed the papers, the men in Washington and Brussels who nodded their approval, most are gone, their names fading. But the story of Patrice Lumumba persists, alive in memory, alive in warning. Because his death was not just an ending, it was the beginning of questions that still haunt Congo today. What might have been had his vision of unity survived? What future was lost in that clearing outside Elizabethville? And how many more betrayals would follow before Africa could truly call itself free? Lumumba once wrote that history would have its say, not the history taught in Brussels, Paris, Washington, or the United Nations, but the history taught in the countries freed from colonialism and its puppets. That history is still being written. His words still echo across the river he once tried to cross. His spirit still lingers where the soil is rich and the people long for dignity. The story of his fall is not only about betrayal and violence, it's also about the resilience of an idea. Freedom, dignity, unity, these were the promises he carried. They could not be dissolved in acid. They could not be shot down in the night. They live on, echoing through the struggles of those who came after him. And so, the man who ruled for only a few months, who never saw his vision fulfilled, became something greater than a prime minister. He became a symbol, not just for Congo, but for Africa, and for all who refused to accept the chains of empire. His killers believed they had erased him. Instead, they had immortalized him.